Hello, my name is Emma, and today I am doing the Lil Peep book tag. You all knew this was coming. It was bound to happen at some point. If you do not know who Lil Peep is, his real name was Gustav R, and he was a musician well known in the emo rap scene, and I have become completely and utterly obsessed with him over the past year of my life. It never gets easier to say that Lil Peep unfortunately passed away at age 21 last year, almost exactly a year ago to this date. Remember that time I convinced over 500 people that Lil Peep was still alive because I talk about him way too much? Me too. But today is not a sad day because we are not only celebrating the beautiful and colorful life of Gustav R, but it is the release date of Come Over When You're Sober Part 2, which is his first entire posthumous album to be released. It is out now. You can go buy it on iTunes, you can stream it on Spotify, and like literally everywhere else. Just please go support my baby. And so while I could sit here and just talk for hours about why I love Lil Peep, why his music is so important to me, and just like every single thought that goes through my brain every single day about this man, I decided it would be fun to convert my love of his music to my other love of books, and I'm going to be doing a Lil Peep book tag I created. So for today's video, I took 9 of my favorite Lil Peep albums, EPs, and mixtapes, and I chose one song off of each of those to create some bookish questions around it, and I'm gonna be answering the questions and lip syncing to some of his music, and I am just so excited I can finally film this video after thinking about it for so many months. Just to be clear, this isn't a list of my favorite Lil Peep songs. My Lil Peep faves playlist on my phone is like 62 songs long. I just chose whatever ones I can make like the slightest tie to literature so that this tag would be kind of cohesive. Starting off with the Feels EP, we have Life. So because life has a lot to do with Lil Peep's unique perspective on life, pick a character that either reflects your life experiences or really speaks to your personal outlook on life. For this question, I'm going to go with Elise Dembowski from This Song Will Save Your Life by Layla Sales. I have literally been talking about this book since the beginning of my booktube channel. It was one of the very first books I read when I got back into reading, and it is all about this girl who is sort of an outcast in school. She doesn't feel like she has a connection to a lot of her peers, but one night she discovers this like underground nightclub and starts to DJ and really finds her love for life. Elise was someone I related to so heavily in my senior year of high school, where I felt I was really isolated from my peers and I didn't really have anyone to comfort me other than my books. Her love of music really spoke to my love of music, and it was nice to find someone who also used it to cope from whatever stressors we were experiencing at the time. This Song Will Save Your Life really shaped my confidence as a teen. It helped me to build a foundation onto the person I can be today, and I always say whenever I recommend this book, it's like giving a little piece of my heart out to the world because I identify so strongly with this story, and it's just super special to me. Off of the album Lil Peep Part 1, we have my all-time favorite Lil Peep song, Star Shopping.
Wait right here. I'll be back in the morning. I know that I'm not that important to you, but to me, girl, you're so much more than gorgeous. So much more than perfect. Right now, I know that I'm not really worth it. If you give me time, I could work on it. Give me some time while I work on it. Losing your patience, and girl, I don't blame you. The earth's in rotation. You waiting for me. Look at my face when I fuck on your waist, cause we only have one conversation a week. That's why your friends always hating on me. Fuck them, no, I did this all by myself. Matter of fact, I ain't never asked no one for help, and that's why I don't pick up my phone when it rings.
Star Shopping is the best song in the entire world. At me, because I will happily fight you about it. Star Shopping is totally a Lil Peep classic. It is one of his most popular songs. It is one of the songs you hear most associated with people's favorite Lil Peep songs. So for this question, I wanted to pick a book that is overhyped but 100% deserves the hype. For that one, I am going to go with The Woman in the Window by A.J. Finn. This story follows a woman with agoraphobia, which is a mental illness based in the fear of going outside, and essentially our main character observes a murder from across the street, and she sort of has to piece together what has actually happened. So The Woman in the Window has gotten a lot of hype this year. It's apparently one of the best-selling books of the year. It got like $1 million movie deal like right at publication, and it has been like very, very highly acclaimed, and it's so deserving of all of that praise. The syntax in this book is unbelievable. I was sitting there the whole time while listening to the audiobook like, I don't understand how someone has the brain capacity to actually string sentences together so perfectly. It's really interesting because not only is this a very slow-moving book, but it also does not have a large location span. It takes place basically in the main character's townhouse, and that's it, but it still remains entertaining and engaging. Like, even if the main character is not really doing anything, you're like, I want to know more. It's a very riveting read in my opinion, and while there are definitely elements that are evident in other sort of mystery thriller stories, not only in literature but also in film, as a lot of the inspiration for this novel came from the film Rear Window, but there's still so much of it that stands on its own, and AJ Finn is just such an immensely talented writer that he deserves all the love in the world, and I can say with confidence that I will be a very long time reader of his works. Next up, off of the Live Forever album, we have Haunt You. Associated with Haunt You is to pick a book that you could not stop thinking about once you had finished it. Like, it was literally haunting you. The book I have chosen for Haunt You by LIL PEEP is The Afterlife of Holly Chase by Cynthia Hand. Not only is it super relevant because I finished this book last December and I still think about it all the time, but it also features ghosts. The Afterlife of Holly Chase is basically like a retelling of A Christmas Carol by Charles Dickens. It follows a girl named Holly who is visited by the classic three ghosts of Christmas. On Christmas Eve, they try to convince her to change her life, but she still wants to be a Scrooge, so the next day she ends up dying. After she dies, Holly finds herself working for an organization called Project Scrooge, which essentially orchestrates the situation similar to the story of A Christmas Carol to try and convince others who are living a negative lifestyle to change and really bring positivity into the world. And it is so good. Oh my god. Just like give me a minute to fangirl. The Afterlife of Holly Chase is so fantastic. It's extremely atmospheric. I find it to be a very creative retelling, and there are just so many little intricate things I love about it. But my experience of listening to The Afterlife of Holly Chase is really distinct in my opinion because I listened to this audiobook so quickly. I just absolutely devoured it. I refused to stop listening to it, which is why I finished it so quickly. But also I have just so many memories attached to like where I was while listening to this audiobook. I remember one day I was driving to like my pole dancing class or something, and I was on this road that I have been traveling since I was a child, but since I was listening to The Afterlife of Holly Chase while driving that one day, every single time I pass that road now, almost a full year later, all I can think about is this audiobook. It's literally haunting me. This book put me in my first ever audiobook slump because I wanted to re-listen to it so badly the second I finished, but I refused because I'm like, I have to wait to listen to it next Christmas. And since then, I have just been so hyped over the last year to reread The Afterlife of Holly Chase in the next month. So it is definitely one that has stuck with me in a very unique manner, but I wouldn't change it for the world because I love this book so much. Next, off the California Girls EP, we have Beat It.
Yeah, I thought I had a feeling before, and now you're closing the door because you don't want me coming in. Yeah, I know I see you before, Friday night at the store, you had another boy to hold your hand. Okay, now I see you, bitch, you want me to be a bitch, I ain't finna be a no. She said, why you so conceited, bitch? Yeah, I got my reason, bitch, why the fuck you geeking,
Inspired by Beat It, the question, or I should say challenge for this song is to unhaul a book right now and just tell it to get out. Now listen, I 100% understand the privilege of not only owning books, but also the privilege of owning enough books where you're able to get rid of certain ones you either didn't like or don't plan on reading anymore. Feel free to interpret it in a way that speaks to you. Maybe it's a book you would like to unhaul after you read it, but you don't own it, or a book you were like so stoked to bring back to the library because you didn't like it that much. The book I'm going to be unhauling is Otherworld by Jason Segel and Kirsten Miller. So this book was a group book choice for the Buy No Bibliothon Readathon one round, and it's basically about like a virtual reality video game. I don't really care to say more than that about it. When I first read this book, I gave it 4 stars because I was like, I had fun with it. I was reading it with a lot of my friends, so like it made for a really decent experience, but I later dropped my rating to 3 stars because I realized it was not that great. It's just not very unique. There's quite a lot of books out there similar to this, and I feel like it just falls flat with the characters, the world building, the romance especially, and the ending was like not good. So while like there were still positives attached to this reading experience, like I'm never gonna reread this book. I don't even know if there's gonna be a sequel, but I probably won't read the sequel, and I can just donate it. It's fine. The next album I've chosen is Changes, which is the most underrated Lil Peep album there is. Like, stop this video right now and go watch it and then come back. So the song I have chosen off of Changes is a groovy little track called Glassy.
Give me your all, baby, I ain't coming up to fall at first. You gotta crawl and you get this all I had. Much help, now I'm all on my own in my room. Why the fuck these people calling my phone, wishes you would, it ain't. Now I'm stuck in my head, feeling like I'm dead, looking up from my bed. I don't need nothing except $1 and a dream. I don't even need $1, I would rather ever be. I had known you were someone to help, someone to save. I had known you were someone to help, someone to save from myself.
Glassy is definitely one of the rare Lil Peep songs that just has like this cute romantic vibe to it, so I have chosen to pick a literary relationship you really admire. I have talked about this book a lot recently, so please forgive me, but I am going with Nova and Adrian from Renegades by Marissa Meyer. Renegades has been like the dopest book of the year for me. I'm so obsessed with it. I can't stop talking about it, sorry. It takes place in a science fiction world where certain people have superpowers, and it's essentially a world where it's like the superheroes versus the supervillains. So we have one supervillain or anarchist whose name is Nova, and her true identity is unknown to the Renegades, who are the superheroes. So she basically applies to become a renegade and bring them down from within. I love the relationship between Nova and Adrian so much because it is one of the greatest slow burn and positive relationships there has ever been in YA, in my opinion. Say goodbye to insta-love, because not only will you be fawning over the fantastic world building and perfect plot of this story, but also you will just be dying for Nova and Adrian to acknowledge their feelings and interact more than they do, because they just have so much chemistry. Although Nova and Adrian do have their secrets that they keep for each other because they like end up unintentionally becoming each other's arch enemies without even noticing it. They're just so compatible, they really uplift each other well, and I feel they have a very equal relationship, which can honestly be very rare in young adult literature. Also, another really great thing about the romance in the story is it's one of the few interracial relationships in YA that I found where both partners are people of color. It's usually just like one white partner and one partner of color, but in this book it's both of them, and there's so much diverse representation in the story, which I love. So yeah, moral of the story, everything in Renegades is perfect and you should read it. Moving on, we of course have the Crybaby album, and how could I choose anything other than the title track Crybaby?
You said I'm a crybaby, I can't be out lately. Girl, you drive me crazy. AMG Mercedes, speeding down the highway, looking at the street lights, geeking on a Friday. I can never sleep right, knowing I hurt you. I don't deserve you, I should've curved you. I know I'm the worst, but I could be cool too. And you got them dance moves, and I got this vibe. I swear it's perfect to ride to.
For Crybaby, Crybaby, I want you to pick a book that made you cry, but it comes with an interesting anecdote about why you cried. Now, I am definitely a book crier. You can frequently find me crying at books, but there are times where like you're crying because you're just like sad or overwhelmed or things are happening, but like I want a story. No like, oh, my favorite character died. Like I want to know about an interesting story about why you cried, where you cried, or just something about what made this cry session so significant for you. So, days later here, nothing new on this channel. For this question, I originally chose The Way I Used to Be by Amber Smith, which I'm sure you all have heard me talk about this year. Like anytime I need to mention an emotionally heavy book, this is the one I choose. But because I use that book so much in my tags, I was like, I need to diversify my tag responses. So I'm gonna be talking about a story of me crying about a book from like 2014, so I'm sure a lot of you have not heard me talk about this. It's also from a very unexpected book. It's from a series I don't really love, and that is Crown of Midnight by Sarah J. Maas. Throne of Glass, not my fave. I've read the first 3 books in this series twice each, and I just never get over Heir of Fire. I don't know when or even if I'll ever finish it. The reason 17-year-old Emma cried over Crown of Midnight is because my no TP had sex. Though I don't love this series now, when I first read Throne of Glass, I loved the first book in the series, and I had like a very solidified ship that I wanted to be together forever. But of course, there had to be an introduction of a love triangle, and it was a character I really did not like, and the main character and that character ended up having sex in the book. And your girl was pissed. I just find this story so funny. Like, I don't know why I was so emotionally distressed over this, but like over here, I'll put a couple of Snapchats from the moment I read that sex scene, and I was so upset, and I like don't care about this at all anymore, but I think it's so funny that like I literally cried because my no TP had sex. That's probably the most emotion you'll ever see me express over the Throne of Glass series. I don't care about it personally, but I always love this story. I think it's so funny because like 17-year-old Emma would have cried over her no TP having sex, and I did. Next up is the Hellboy album, so of course, what else am I gonna do again besides pick the title track Hellboy?
You don't even know what I've been through. You don't gotta let me a bitch do. Blowing up phone like I miss you. I love you by the way I kiss you. You don't even know what I've been through. You don't gotta let me a bitch do. Blowing up phone like I miss you. I love you by the way I kiss you.
Fun fact, this question was actually one of the very first questions I came up with when I started planning this tag like last January. It's based on the fact that in quite a few interviews, Peep had talked about how Hellboy was really his project that got him more into the mainstream, stepped him out of the role of like just a SoundCloud rapper, and got more people listening to his music. It got him more exposure, etc. So the question for Hellboy is to pick a book that introduced you to a new genre that you now love. For this one, I'm going to go with The Girl on the Train by Paula Hawkins. This novel follows a woman named Rachel who is living a very repetitive, mundane life. She takes the same route to work every single day and always stares at these houses out of the train window. But one day, there is this family that she's been watching, and she sees something really shocking happen, so she starts to get involved. So I believe I read The Girl on the Train maybe like October, November of I think 2016. It was like around the time when the movie for this came out, I believe, and like I really wanted to see the movie, but of course I had to read the book first. Also, I never ended up seeing the movie. That's like a very common theme with me. Like I pick up things because I want to watch the TV show or movie, and I read the book, but I never get around to the adaptation. And while I don't think The Girl on the Train is the most impressive of its kind, you know, there are so many more books like it out there that I greatly prefer, but it was the first ever adult psychological thriller I read, and that introduced me to the genre that I consider one of my absolute favorites. Up until this point, I was like a strictly young adult reader at the time, and adult books were very daunting to me, so I never thought I could connect with them or enjoy them or even understand them in the way that I enjoyed YA books, but The Girl on the Train really changed that for me. The fact that I completed this book and did enjoy it really opened me up into the world of adult psychological thrillers and mysteries, where there were stories that I was really interested in, but just didn't think I had the capability to process. And so, although again, like, it's not my favorite book in the entire world, I'm really grateful that it opened me up to such an expansive genre of reading that I really, really enjoy now. Next up, we are moving on to Come Over When You're Sober Part 1, and the song I've chosen off of this album is The Brightside.
I know that you want me, you know that I want you. The memories haunt me, I know that they haunt you too. But it's alright, you'll be fine. Baby, it's alright, you'll be fine. As long as you're mine, take a look at the time. It gets cold at night when you're alone outside. But it's fine, I'll be fine. Baby, you're my girl, baby, you're mine. Just look at the bright side, look at the bright side. Just look at the club lights, I gotta look at the bright side.
Question for The Brightside is a little bit more obscure than some of the other ones on this list, but it is, what is one book or series that you personally love but it gets a lot of hate, and what do you think about when you are trying to push through that hate and remember why you really love it? I was trying to think of it like, okay, like everyone's shitting on my favorite book and making me feel bad about liking it. What is it that I love about this book that makes it okay to deal with all of this hate? So of course, you know I'm gonna choose The Mortal Instruments by Cassandra Clare. This series is vehemently hated by a lot of people. I've heard it all. I've heard every negative thing under the sun that someone could say about this series. I don't think I have heard like a unique criticism of this book in a very long time, because I've literally heard it all. Some people mind their own business and let me like it in peace, but other people try to make me feel really bad about this being my favorite series of all time. And the way I just push through all of that negativity is by just remembering how much this book truly means to me. Sort of similar to This Song Will Save Your Life, The Mortal Instruments was there for me when no one else in my life was. The Mortal Instruments series was my lifeline my senior year of high school. I read it like 5 times in the span of 3 months. It was just so important to me. It gave me a reason to fight through all of the stuff that was making just existing so draining that year, and it really taught me to be comfortable in my own skin, and no one can ever take that away from me. You can say anything you want about this book or the author or even me for liking it, and you will never tarnish the connection I have to the story and everything it has done for me. And that's the bright side of the situation, that no matter what people say or what they think, all of their misconceptions and assumptions about people who like this book or whatever, like, they can't touch what I have with this book, and that makes it all worth it in the end. And finally, as today is the release date for Come Over When You're Sober Part 2, I can pick a song off of my baby's new album. For the final question, I decided to choose the song that I was the most excited for with this album coming out, and that is Sex With My Ex. Sadness in your laughter, she's afraid of what comes after me. True, I don't know when I'll be back in town. All I know is that she'll wait around for me. All I know is that she'll hold me down. All I know is that she'll hold me down. I will keep so 10 toes on the ground for me. Such a fucking good song, oh my god. The question I have associated with Sex With My Ex is, what is one author you gave a chance for the first time and didn't really like but decided to give a second chance anyways? The author I chose for this question is Riley Sager, the author of Final Girls and his most recent release, The Last Time I Lied. I read Final Girls at the end of last year, and I overall really enjoyed this story. I gave it 3.5 stars because I didn't think it was like the best book in the entire world, and I had distinct issues with the writing and construction of the story, but like the plot of it is just so fun and unique that I did have a great time reading it. This book plays with the final girl trope from horror, and it's all about these 3 different girls who are part of these 3 different massacres where everyone else but them died, and so they're given the term the final girls. So things are looking up for the main character named Quincy, who is starting to recover after many years of dealing with the trauma from this event, but things get really twisted when one of the final girls is found dead and the other 2 believe that there's someone coming after them as well. So yeah, Final Girls was still like a fun, enjoyable read that I would recommend if you're like, able to set aside some issues with writing for like an entertaining story, and it was good enough to ultimately convince me to read his second book. Unfortunately, I actually liked The Last Time I Lied less than Final Girls. I do actually believe The Last Time I Lied is a better book than Final Girls. I believe a lot of the issues I had were improved upon, and that's great, but the excitement and enjoyment and fun nature of Final Girls just was not present in The Last Time I Lied for me, and so it just made it a not enjoyable reading experience. I just found this book really boring. It solidified that I really don't like how Riley Sager writes women, and it was not a great time, and I'm honestly a little mad that I read it. So was the breakup sex good? No. Would I possibly read from Riley Sager again? I don't know why, but the answer is yes. Why? I don't understand. I don't get it. But that completes the Lil Peep book tag. I'm gonna assume there's a large chunk of people who are still watching this video that don't like Lil Peep whatsoever and are just watching because it's my video. So thank you for sticking it out this long. I tried really hard to contain myself and not gush about him the way I do on Instagram and Twitter. So thanks for being super supportive. So yes, Come Over When You're Sober Part 2 is out now. You can go buy it or stream it. Just like support this fantastic freaking album. Oh my god. But that is it for this video. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you soon for a new video. Bye!